As Dungeons & Dragons celebrates its 50th year, it's clear that the TTRPG is more popular than ever. From Critical Role in Dimension 20, to Stranger Things in the D&D movie, and now their own video games and crossover events, Dungeons & Dragons is continuing to reach new heights. But one particular thing has opened space for an even larger audience, and that would be Baldur's Gate 3. I've made a few videos talking about how impactful that game is, and it's really a great time, but as fantastic as it is, the future of D&D video games seems worrisome. Larian Studios, the indie company that created Divinity Original Sin and the aforementioned Baldur's Gate 3, have already said they're moving on to different projects. And that, rightfully so, worried a lot of people who were assuming that Baldur's Gate 4 was coming in the distant future. And that's the thing. It still probably is. With D&D and Dead by Daylight now collaborating, I wanted to take a look into what the future might look like for Dungeons & Dragons in the video gaming space, specifically with crossovers and games within the franchise. And I'd like to propose the question: should we be hopeful, or should we be worried? Baldur's Gate 3 really took the D&D world, and the gaming world for that matter, by storm. Like, it won Game of the Year at the Game Awards, the voice actors have won multiple awards for their performances, especially Neil Newman, and Larian Studios went from indie darling to titan of the industry in one swing. This was a game that was made with love. Their dedication was shown again and again, and it continues to be, with update after update, and memes online, and whatever else. But it came as a big surprise to a lot of the fanbase when Larian announced back in March that while they had ideas for DLC, they weren't going to be making any after all, nor were they going to be making any other games under the D&D license. And the D&D license is thriving right now. I mentioned all the big things in the video's intro, but to have a whole movie and a video game for your franchise release in the same year, that speaks volumes. And now it's been announced that the Arch-Lich Vecna, one of the most prolific villains in Dungeons & Dragons, will be making his way into Dead by Daylight. And that game is like Crossover City. When Vecna releases at the beginning of June, he can go against Left 4 Dead's Bill, like 27 Resident Evil characters, and Nick freaking Cage. It's like the horror Fortnite at this point. Well, Fortnite is the horror Fortnite at this point, besides the point. And while it might not happen, especially as they're busy with other licenses like Fallout, I could see D&D crossing over with Fortnite coming soon too. And this is all great for the TTRPG that I love, but I do think there is cause for concern. First, let's address why Larian might be dropping the IP, and if we should be worried about who picks it up. A lot of discussion has been had about the Wizards of the Coast team, and Hasbro at large, giving Larian a lot of grief. Most of the talk I've seen online brings up how Wizards of the Coast have tainted their identity, or they've made some poor decisions in the past, which has only worked to push Larian away. And while I wouldn't be surprised if Larian felt the need to step away due to Hasbro's decisions, I really do think it's exactly the way Larian's CEO said. Swin Vinkis said with GameSpot, "We wanted to do big new things." In the same quote, he went on to say that they don't want to rehash things, and how that's not how they operate. Even Divinity Original Sin 2 was to build upon the first game and craft a better story. They feel that they've done all they needed to with the Dungeons & Dragons IP, but that doesn't mean Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast have been all sunshine and rainbows recently. Some very telling things have happened in the last year or so that really struck a nerve with their fanbase, myself included. I'll touch on them briefly. First, the OGL situation. This is year-old news, some I don't fully understand, but the big idea of it was that Wizards of the Coast wanted to restructure the open gaming license they set in place in the early 2000s. Basically, they wanted to profit off high-earning, third-party D&D content by taking part of their revenue from said content. Seems about 20 to 25% of their revenue. Not only that, but they wanted to make it so that the Wizards team can just claim the right to any third-party content in any way they saw fit. And, yeah, that's pretty dumb. People have already said that. It's pretty dumb. I will say, I'm seeing some stuff that they also wanted to use the OGL edits to, like, ban D&D NFTs and similar stuff. But you want to know something that's just as dumb as NFTs? AI-generated art. And guess what other controversy Wizards got themselves into recently? Back in August, people noticed that the art in the new D&D book, Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants, had art that used generative AI. If I need to explain why that's bad, why are you here? While Wizards were not the initiators in using AI art, Ilya Shkipbin was still a longtime artist they had worked with on several occasions. Apparently this was the first time the artist used AI art in relation to their D&D artwork, but I found a really interesting quote from someone on Reddit. That's the first time anyone has ever said that. A Reddit user named "That is completely f***ing wrong, dude," said in relation to another D&D AI scare that the case of Ilya Shkipbin using AI was, quote, only caught, called out, and corrected because of community action. And I think that's very true. We would like to think that Wizards of the Coast would have caught it themselves and fixed it, but what if they didn't? What if there was a world where they had caught it beforehand? Can we trust a company as big as them and Hasbro to act without community action? And the last controversy I want to talk about is simply the firings that happened back in December. I get that sometimes companies have to let people go, but it's very scary to think that the people at Wizards of the Coast who collaborated with Larian's team on conceptualizing Baldur's Gate 3 can still be laid off. Larian's CEO said that of the original meeting room that he met with, there's almost nobody left. Now, with those controversies discussed, the question still stands. Should we be worried about D&D, especially when it comes to their video games and their gaming crossovers? No, obviously not. It's been astounding to see all of the incredible things D&D is doing. Vecna in Dead by Daylight? Sick as hell. I'm gonna start playing that game again. That's awesome. And from what I've seen, he's not even that great of a killer, but like, it's Vecna. And Baldur's Gate 3, if you couldn't tell, is my favorite game of all time. And I'm sure Baldur's Gate 4 will still have a place in my heart. Hopefully. But we should be worried about the company that holds Dungeons & Dragons. At the end of the day, companies are not your friends. Microsoft just let go of the people at Tango Gameworks, who made Hi-Fi Rush, one of the most popular games on Game Pass this past year. And they let go of several other studios too, Arcane Austin, Alpha Dog Games, and that's a significant amount of people who will be losing their jobs. Companies want to make endless profits. They want to be in the conversation, and they will still make decisions that don't sit right with the rest of their fan base. I'm still gonna play D&D, still interact with D&D video games, and I'm definitely gonna play Vecna, not gonna lie. But that doesn't mean that we still shouldn't examine these companies closely. And there's thousands of other TTRPGs out there that you can still play if you want to take a break from D&D. Thank you for tuning in to another Your Son Cole banger. A certified banger, dude, as reported by myself. And thanks for the love on the other two videos that I've put out recently. You know, it gives me faith in wanting to turn this hobby into, like, you know, a bigger hobby, I guess. Anyways, subscribe if you want to see more from me, and go check out one of those videos if you haven't already. Thanks, and good.